Hey everybody, this is Joe. Thank you for watching my Giga-Texas construction update video.
Well, welcome to Giga-Texas. It's Monday, the 14th of November, and as you can see, the rain is starting already, and we're going to have some severe weather later today. Fortunately, I was able to get the video in. Now, two quick things I want to show you that you'll see in the video, and then we're going to have a discussion about what they're constructing up at the Battery Cathode plant. First, as you can see by this image, on that west main entrance, they're doing some more reconfiguration of that concrete apron around where the stairs are. And as you can see with this image, they are actually doing some saw cuts and concrete removal again. So we're going to see another way that they're going to do this main entrance. So it'll be interesting to see what they come up with. The second thing that I want to talk about briefly is up at the electrical switch yard. As you can see by this image here, we now have 4 of those A-frame structures installed, and there's 3 more that'll be installed, so a total of 7. We can also see some concrete work preparing to install the last of the 2 large circuit breakers and more work on those 2 large foundations for the transformers on the south end. So anyway, as I said, inclement weather coming through the area, but a lot of activity this morning, and I was fortunate to get the video completed before all this rain began. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about what's going on at the Battery Cathode plant, and then we'll get into the main video. As always, thank you very much for watching.
For today, I'd like to talk a little bit about that new steel structure that's being constructed on the west side of the Battery Cathode plant. And with the help of several Patreons, including Desi Doolin, Harder NL, Patrick Kinney, William Wheeler, and Brian Dolbeck, we may have the answer. So let's discuss. To do this, we'll use various clues that I've captured on video and images to try to piece together what's going on. First of all, as you can tell, this steel structure that has been recently installed is primarily made up of what appears to be galvanized steel, which would suggest it's going to be open to the environment. 2 more clues are in the construction of the steel structure itself. It shows a flat roof, which suggests that equipment will be installed on top, and this projection that connects to the 2nd floor of the Battery Cathode plant, offering access to the roof. Yet another clue is nearby on the south end, where we see a pile of steel mesh being prepared for installation. Most likely this will form the roof of this steel structure. And yet another clue is the recent delivery of these EvapCo cooling units and enclosures. Believe that these will be installed on the roof of that steel structure on the west side. And finally, with the construction of the concrete slab itself, you can see that it's divided into 2 main sections. The north section that has a lot of the plumbing and conduit installation, and the south end that has a U-shaped, highly reinforced concrete section, as you can see by these images. So putting all of these clues together, this is what I think we are seeing being constructed. On the north end, it is a plant platform with the EvapCo units mounted on the roof, a pressurized cooling system piping that will be suspended on the beams underneath, and the metal mesh decking covering the platform. This may look very similar to this image that we see at Giga Shanghai, and I believe that this is representative of what this northern section will appear when it's completed. And on the south end, what we're likely seeing is a smaller ancillary plant, and since it has the heavily reinforced section of concrete, I believe that these 4 stainless steel tanks that are located on the west staging location will be installed here. So just to wrap up what we've discussed today, is it looks like this west side construction project is a north side primary HVAC plant in using that galvanized steel structure, and a smaller ancillary plant using stainless steel tanks and other equipment. So overall, I hope that you enjoyed this discussion, the images, and the information, and I hope that this helps put into context what we are seeing being constructed today. Thank you very much for watching, and let's get into the main video.
My drones are ready and raring to go. Let's go flying over Giga-Texas.
We're starting off early today to try to beat the rain and the thunderstorms that are forecast to come through the area a little bit later. And fortunately, things worked out for the flight. We're starting here on the south end, showing you where the remaining of the Model Ys are being stored here on the west overflow lot. But as you notice, there are no more Model Ys, or virtually no more Model Ys in that middle section where the concrete is being saw cut and removed. Also, I want to show you here the test rig that is testing the strength of the soil. That red and yellow device has been moved over to the sort of the northwest corner of this section, so they are testing different areas to find out what kind of reinforcement for the soil will be needed. So let's move further to the south and just take a look at the material staging and storage location today. Most of the trench work is on the south side. It looks like it's been completed and filled back over with dirt, and that kind of extends underneath where all of the solar panels are on the right hand side of the screen over towards where the concrete vaults and the workers are currently doing some of the finish work on the underground conduits. You can see them next to those three concrete vaults, and you can also see some of the conduit that trails off to the south and also to the west, and you can see another vault with sort of these doors that open up. So this should be able to replace all of these lower level power lines that you see across the middle of the screen, and I'm kind of looking forward to that as well. As I pan back towards the north, you can see how the eastern material staging lot looks like, and also how all of this concrete lot has been removed from this side, and pretty much just this one remaining center section. And as we move back towards the west and this center section comes into view, you can see that they have done these saw cuts. These are those long vertical stripes with all of the dust from the concrete that's been sawed. But this section here is about to be removed, and probably by the end of the week a majority of this will be removed as well. A few more of the little Model Ys here, just waiting for final movement. But while we're here, I'm going to get down low and try to give you a good zoom in view of the activity inside the south stamping machine extension, and you can see inside that there's a lot of work on this western bay, specifically on the ground or the grade, and it looks like there may be some sort of excavation about midway through, but otherwise you can see quite a bit of activity, machines, equipment, and some other materials inside. Now this eastern bay shows you the isolation foundation that's been constructed, and it's underground. You can see quite a bit of it. Looks like it's nearing completion, and this is where the AIDA stamping press will be installed at some point in the near future once they get the rest of this underground foundation filled back up with some dirt. You can also see on the corner here of the stamping machine building, there's some of these crates with the blue tops. I think this is more AIDA stamping machine components that have been recently delivered, and these join the ones on the eastern side that are just coming into view. And you can see all of these crates, and if you compare back to a couple of videos ago, you can see there's a lot more of this material that has been delivered. Also on the left hand side, in those blue, the brown, and the green, you can see, especially in the north part, the 4 green components that are now on those temporary rails. That has all been recently delivered, and that's more of the various parts that are needed to put this stamping machine together. And this stamping machine is about at least a city block long and about as big as most office buildings. You can also see a little bit of the crates on the east side as well. I'm going to maneuver the drone over the solar panels between the L and the A of Tesla to show you just how close to finishing up this section that joins those 2 letters together. And this is on the top part of the L, and then they'll be moving towards the west to finish up the bottom part of the L. Also, the work here on the body in white roof with these HVAC ducts continues. You can see that the entire section with those ducts has now been opened up by removing the roof decking. And there's some lights inside as well, so I'll try to give you a little bit of a view down inside as we move our way around the workshop or the work space here. You also see just some materials on the right hand side. I'm not sure if this is waiting for installation or if this is stuff that they've recently removed, but this is a good view down inside the structure just to see what some of that equipment looks like. Down on the second floor, it looks like there are some workers down there as well. And another good view of some of the materials on the east side waiting for future work. I'm going to go back over to the west side of the building to show you some interesting developments with the main entrance. One thing seems for sure here at Giga-Texas is that they really do like laying down concrete and then later on coming back and doing concrete removal. And this pullback here gives you a really good idea of the work that is going on just to the north of the stairs for the main entrance, and I'll give you a closer look in just a second as we proceed over that landscaped area across the road. And you can see that they've saw cut this section again, and it looks like one of the sections been removed. A lot of that water that you see here I think is actually a byproduct of the saw cutting process, as they use water to cool the saw blade. But you can see a lot of these large square sections have been saw cut. It looks like they are preparing to saw cut across the front of the stairs as well. So a new treatment for the main entrance is something we'll be looking forward to seeing in the near future. As we wrap around the northwest corner of the battery cell production section of the building, I'll give you a little bit of a view of the continuing work with the plumbing going down this center section between the parking lot and the road. Also some work on the center sidewalk and some of the curbs as well. I'm going to pull the drone back to give you an overall view of the north end, and you can also see that the cyber berm has actually got the lights on today, at least this particular section. Of course, it's still a little bit too much light, but you can still see them glowing. And as we continue back closer to the main building, I'll give you some good views of the activity on the north end, specifically where those red and white and blue trailers are. That's in front of the plastics manufacturing section. And then here is one of the two platforms for the second floor of the paint shop. And you can see it looks like they are lifting up some more of these white painted materials. This looks like potentially a column. All of these materials are usually used for some of the production line equipment. And it looks like they've got a large selection of new white painted equipment up on top of that platform. And also you can kind of get a view inside on the top of the platform to see what activity is going on inside. Otherwise, most of the material out here looks to be some sort of duct work. Some of it's coated with the red plastic, and others have been unwrapped. So it looks like there's a lot of duct work being installed inside the paint shop. As we go around the northeast corner of the casting machine structure, again, you can see some of that reconfiguration work on the berm on the left, and all of the castings that have been produced and are being stored here on the outside ground floor, waiting for movement over to the body in white. Now what I can see here is there's a lot more of them, not only on the ground, but also in those white racks as well. So the production rate of the castings seems to be probably in that 400 or more per day range right now, and that relates to the production rate as well for the Model Ys. So I'm going to position the drone back towards the north and prepare to go take a look at the activity at the electrical switchyard today. So I'll bring the drone over the temporary switchyard that you see at the bottom left, and then we'll go to the permanent switchyard construction site. And one of the things that you'll notice here is that there are now 4 of these A towers up at the top of the screen, and I'll give you a better, closer look in just a bit. And also work on these 2 foundations for the transformers. You can see the crews have finished the concrete retaining wall around the one on the left, and the form work with the concrete, I think, has been poured on the one on the right, so soon those will be completed. Also more footings being installed just to the north there. As we proceed towards where the steel assembly has happened, you can see there are 6 rectangular footings, 3 of them on the right being worked on. This is the last 2 locations for the sort of the V-topped circuit breakers that will be installed here, and the units are south of the temporary switchyard waiting for installation. And you can see 4 more around these 4 8-frame towers. There's eventually going to be 7 of these here at the site. They should be, I think, 2 more just to the south of the 2 on the left-hand side of the screen, and then another one on the center section of the construction site. But here you can see those 4 circuit breakers on the ground with those kind of the V-tops installed. A lot more of the steel with the disconnects and the bus bars as well. As I pull back to give you an overall view of the construction site, you can see that work continues on the control room building on the left, and more materials waiting for installation. I'm going to bring the drone up a little bit higher and position it so we are facing towards the east, and we'll head over towards the Battery Cathode Plant. I also just wanted to give you this view because it gives you a good orientation of where the electrical switchyard is in relation to that Battery Cathode Plant. As we come down with the drone here, I want to show you this sort of pond that's being developed. And as we talked previous video, there's going to be a liner. It's going to be like a white vinyl liner put in here, and I believe it's going to be used for contaminated water, at least on a temporary basis. And it's very similar to one that used to exist up where the electrical switchyard is being constructed now. As we come across the section where the geopier work has been ongoing, we see that the geopier equipment continues to be idle in this section here. So that may suggest that most of the geopier work has been completed, at least to this point in time. And then we'll come up closer to the section here that we talked about in the intro. And you can see that there's some more of the retaining walls, the small ones being prepared with that rebar. You can see how this structure looks from this vantage point. And again, I believe that there's going to be some pipes hung from the bottom of this structure. There'll be a grate type roof, and then we are expecting to see the 4 EvapCo units installed where those square sections are. And you can also see that connecting sort of a bridge area to the second floor, about where that worker with yellow is walking. And I think that's how they're going to have access to the roof for the equipment. You can also see how many cranes are in operation here. 3 on the right, and then on the left we can see this large crane, and it has that drilling rig reattached to it. And this is the same crane with that drilling rig that was used on the south end of the building, where we talked about earlier that they're doing soil samples with that sort of that red bridge crane kind of looking device. Well, it looks like here they're going to be doing the same thing, possibly testing the soil. You can see the drill pieces at the bottom of the screen. You can see the drill itself attached to the crane and how that mechanism works. And I would not be surprised that we would see some drilling here and then another test rig. In fact, at the end of the video, I'll show you where I believe the new test rig has just arrived on site. So as we maneuver towards the north, I'll give you a good view of the material staging up in this section and also how this clearing location appears today. That green area is where they seeded a section of the ponds and hills that they removed and flattened out. And all of this steel here is being stored in preparation for the new construction where the geopiers are currently working. These excavators are filling in the trench for a water pipe that has been installed, and it runs down the length of this east side. Also, if you look at this steel structure, which may be a control room, you can see frames for doors right next to the worker. So it looks like they are preparing to finish up the frameworks for doors, maybe windows, and then they'll be putting the roof decking and the walls on. These are the 4 EvapCo systems that I believe are going to be going on the west side on top of that roof, and all 4 of these have now been moved over from the west of the highway material staging location that we discussed in my previous video. As we maneuver further to the south, you can just see how this side of the building is looking in the white tint and many of the contractor trailers on the left-hand side of the screen. And overall, just how the construction of the battery cathode plant, the surrounding area, and the new construction on the west side appears today. So as we fly over the parking lot on the north end of what used to be the warehouse on wheels, I think this is just a temporary parking lot. It'll be restored later on. But you can see the trailers that are in the warehouse on wheels yard, and also quite a bit of the materials here at the sort of center and bottom of the screen. Some in green, some in red. A lot of it looks like ductwork, similar to what we saw being moved into the north end of the paint shop. You can also see quite a few wooden crates with more materials and equipment necessary for the fill out of the factory for production. On the left-hand side and bottom of the screen, you can see another new section with more materials that have been moved here from other parts of the east side staging location. And in the center, you can see that workshop that is used to modify and fabricate some of the steel components that you see nearby. Near to the trees, you can see even more components. These look like white painted trusses, so they may form part of a roof of a new building, perhaps the structure that's being constructed at the geopier section near the battery cathode plant. Here's a really good view of how the warehouse on wheels looks from the south end looking to the north, and quite a few trailers here today. I'm going to maneuver the drone further towards the main factory and where the new car staging and transportation lot is located. There's 3 trucks actively picking up Model Ys today. And as always, the activity here is constant. And while I was doing the video today, at least 3 or 4 more of these trucks arrived on site and then departed with Model Ys. And while that's happening, more Model Ys are being moved up from the south end of the factory. Here's a good lower view showing you what it's like as the vehicles are being loaded up onto these trucks and what it would appear if you were here watching the new vehicles being prepared for shipment. I want to move towards the north one more time to show you a couple of interesting deliveries. Now, as I talked about earlier, where they were doing the preparing the tall crane for drilling by the battery cathode plant, as I think they're going to be doing more soil strength testing. And you can see on these 3 trucks, It looks like this is that test rig. On the left is the beams, very similar to what we saw on the south end of the factory. And then the other two have the legs that the beams would be mounted on, and then they'll be testing that soil strength. Also, you can see some red and white painted items underneath those tarps. I believe that's more of the same type of material that we saw being loaded into the north end of the paint shop. So I'll be watching to see if that moves that way as well. So this is what it looked like on a rainy day. I'm glad I was able to get the video done before the heavy rains arrived. As always, thank you very much for watching. I very much do appreciate the support, and I hope you have a great week.